Hello everyone, my name is PrdBlackWatch and welcome to another episode of How to Play, and in this week's episode we're going to be taking a look at Aria De Luca, also known as Alibi. She is a defending operator who deserves a lot more recognition and a lot more playtime than she currently has from people. She's got an incredible primary weapon, she's got a fun gadget that can be used to trick people, that can be used to deny people, and there's loads of different things that make her the special person that she is. So, Alibi is a defender, as I said. She's a 1 armor 3 speed and she's on the GIS CTU, that's an Italian CTU, alongside Maestro, and they were both introduced in Year 3 Season 2, that was the Parabellum season. She has 2 primary weapons, the ACS-12 automatic shotgun. So this is essentially the AA-12, it's got about 30 rounds in the magazine, it's a fully automatic shotgun. It rips and tears when it comes to destruction, and if you get someone up close with it and you can keep your shots on target, they will just melt. But the MX-4 Storm is her other primary, and that's the real star of this particular show. It's essentially Valkyrie's MPX, but with a much higher rate of fire, and as a result it's got a little bit more recoil, but as we all know in Siege, rate of fire trumps damage usually with weapons, and this is a very good weapon and it's a very fast weapon. Her secondaries, she has the Bailiff 410, which is the one I would recommend. That's a shotgun pistol, it's got 5 rounds, it's got a very small pellet spread, and as a result destruction's not the easiest thing with it. You get a hole out of it that's probably about half the size of a regular shotgun hole, but you can use it to break hatches, you can use it to make small kill holes, so it's definitely not a slouch and it will do some damage at close range. And the Keratos 357 is her other one. It's a revolver, 6 shot, very accurate, very powerful, definitely from the point of view of the revolvers, and in some ways in pistols in general is probably the strongest in the game at the moment. And she has impacts, which are always very good for a roamer like she is. And she has a deployable shield, which is crap just now, but they are going to be redoing it, so it will be useful eventually, but still I would pick the impacts because she's a roamer. Her unique ability is the Prisma. So this is a hologram of herself that's projected. One of the downsides of this particular hologram is that it only projects as a copy of her standard self, with the normal skin on the gun, no attachments, and no different uniforms or headgears. So if you are using any DLC headgears or anything like that, the smarter player who pays a bit more attention will be able to spot you. But there's ways to get around that, and I'll tell you about them in just a second. So her strengths as an operator, first of all, the impacts make roaming very easy. It's the same with Vigil. It's one of the reasons why people pick him over Jaeger sometimes, and that's because if you are stuck in a pinch, impacts can usually get you out of that pinch, whereas if you're standing there without them, you usually have to fight your way out or hope that the escape route is safe enough to get away without having to blow through a wall. She's got fantastic secondary weapons. As I say, that 357 is incredibly powerful, more powerful than people give it credit for. There was a while I ran Maestro with only the pistol and the shotgun before they buffed the ADS fire of his Alda LMG to make it the beast it is today. And that Bailiff secondary, the shotgun, it's just so versatile, it makes me feel like I'm playing a Caveira who can actually win firefights straight up, and that's a really big one for me. Her gadget is pretty solid. It's definitely not going to fool everyone 100% of the time, but the times that it does fool people, it's good, and the times that you use it as a denial tool on windows and deployable shields and stuff, that's also pretty good. You know, it gives you options there. And she also has that very fast firing primary weapon. That's always going to be a positive selling point for a roamer. Her weaknesses, however, are the fact that that fast firing primary weapon has a low damage per shot. So if you're a body shot kind of guy, especially if you end up against someone like a Gridlock who's starting to appear in the meta a little bit, you might have a tougher time trying to take her down. But all it takes is that one headshot, and when you've got so many rounds coming down range, there is every chance that one of those shots will be a headshot. So it's not always that much of a crutch. The gadget can sometimes be useless, but then again you have someone like Vigil whose gadget can very often not really come into play at all, and so you're running the same kind of risk as him. Definitely not a gadget that would replace an ADS, but decent nonetheless. And Another thing that's difficult about her is the fact that her ammo disappears very quickly because of that fast rate of fire. It only has 30 rounds, which is still a decent magazine size, but you will burn through it very quickly. And then you're left with potentially a shotgun, which could make engagements difficult from range. But with the Keratos, you're not in as bad a state, so do keep that in mind. And the last bad thing is that it's kind of difficult to look good without feeling a bit guilty or feeling like maybe you've undersold yourself, because you can't put those special uniforms on without essentially broadcasting the fact that your prismas are not you instantly. Anyway, there's a difference there that comes into the play of the prisma that will make you reconsider that particular downside, and that's the fact that when people see a person, they don't register who it is immediately. What they register is that there is someone there. That's why you have people who will accidentally kill their teammates. And that's kind of what you're looking to do with a prisma. So it's used as a denial tool and an intel tool. If someone shoots it, it will ping that person repeatedly for a short period of time. It's about as fast as Lion's new ping. Well, it's not out yet, but it will be soon. So it's very fast, it's also quite loud, and the enemy who's been hit by it will know straight away, I am now exposed and this is dangerous for me. It can also be used not only just for catching them off guard with the shooting, but also putting it on windows or putting it next to deployable shields. If they have to walk through it, then they'll set it off, and that means that you have a situation where hopefully, if they do have to push through your thing and haven't managed to take it out in advance, it just puts them in pressure and means that as soon as they come through, you'll be notified, and hopefully you can deal with them, and that sets up some nice opportunities for ambushes. You can play the mirrors game, which is to put down several prismas and pretend to be one of them. You can do that if you have all of the standard stuff without attachments and that, or even with a couple of attachments. Sometimes it works, very often it doesn't, because they can see that your feet aren't perfectly aligned on the plates of the prisma, various other things that will give you away, and you'll just end up looking a bit stupid. So watch out for that. Try to avoid that particular trap, but you know, if you're playing in lower ranks and you want to have a go, or you're just feeling brave, apologies for the voice break, it can be quite funny sometimes, so you know, give it a try at least once. It will fool people sometimes, but if you do use it as a fool tool rather than a denial tool, sticking it out in a place where you think they'll maybe think, oh, that's a bad guy and I need to shoot him, you'll maybe get them, but it's applying less pressure because it's not in an immediate place of your engagement, usually, unless you're kind of stalking near your prismas, in which case if you set it off, they're going to be fairly vigilant unless they just start running away, which is where one of my pieces of advice for Alibi comes in, and that is, if you are going to use them like that, use them in an ambush context. I mentioned this earlier, use them where you can be aside them, and as soon as it goes off, and that person's been marked, you can go for them, and you can take advantage of the fact that they're panicking, they know that you know where they are, and they have to either go on the back foot and defend, which might be more difficult for you, or the probable and hopeful scenario is that they start to run away and reposition to get themselves to safety, and in doing so, you end up getting the kill. The other thing you want to watch out for when you're playing as Alibi is that your gadgets are not invincible. And so if you do put them on a window, sure, it might work initially, but there's every chance that once that first burst has gone through and X amount of people have been marked outside, if you haven't capitalized on that pressure, someone might just rappel on the window that you've put it on, shoot it, and then that's your gadget out of the game. That's your whole thing just done. So you've lost the positives of your gadget. And obviously you're still a good roamer, but then you've lost the value. So it's a trade-off. Take advantage of that rate of fire and try to keep gunfights close to you, because you want to take advantage of your primary for the first part. You want to make sure that you can be close enough to hit reliable, comfortable headshots and get those shots in around about the high chest area so that it can hopefully move up and get the head, or just snap them in the head in the first place. You also want to make sure, especially if you're using the bailiff as a secondary, that if they do end up getting hit and you run out of ammo, that you can then swap to the bailiff secondary shotgun and know that you're actually going to deal some damage instead of shooting sand at them from a distance, which is where the Keratos would come in. But if you can try and keep those gunfights close to mid, then hopefully that shouldn't matter and you should be able to use either secondary without any real issues. Use those impacts for escapes. Be aware whenever you're going into a potentially dangerous situation of where people are going to be looking for you and where your options are to get the fudge out of Rog when you need to, because it will be eventually quite dangerous for you in some situations. And if you have a wall that leads to a bit of safety and you can just pop it and run, it's going to be a lot easier than having to run through a doorway or somewhere that could potentially be covered by someone else. Use that shotgun like Caveira, use it for prep, and make sure that you open hatches that you intend to roam in, rather than using impacts later on in the round or chipping away at it with a shotgun later on. Try and do it during the prep phase, because if you do, the hatch is open and it's a constant threat, rather than opening the hatch mid-game, making a lot of noise, and broadcasting the potential of your rotation a lot more loudly and a lot more clearly to the enemy team, who will then be expecting you to come from wherever you've made the noise. You can use that to juke people. You can convince them you're going to come from one place. If you know where they are, you can maybe sneak up on them as a result. But this is a 50-50 game, whereas having the hatch open at all times is pressurable and hopefully isn't going to attract too much attention, apart from maybe a little bit of suspicion as someone moves in, but they're not going to pay attention for too long, hopefully. The last thing you can use the Prisma for is runouts. This sometimes works, but it's a risky one. This is where you have a Prisma on one window, and then you have a window prepped for a runout the other side. Someone shoots it. Oh no, I've been marked. You hop out the other window, bang, bang. There's very limited scenarios you can actually use this on. One of them's on Cafe if you're defending mining and train. So in this case, you would have the mining window marked with a Prisma, or the red stairs window marked with a Prisma. They would then shoot it, they get marked, and you hop out the other window that you're not leaving a Prisma on, and you hopefully get the kill. But again, it's a risky business, and it's one that if it doesn't pay off, your gadget's done and you are done. And if you are trying to use your gadget to ambush people and to catch them off guard rather than using it as a denial thing, just be aware. It's pretty easy to tell the difference between an Alibi wearing a green uniform with a red beret and an Alibi wearing a black uniform with a white and gold beret, as some people may find out, especially the ones that try to play the mirrors game when they're wearing alternate uniforms. That's a decent spell of comedy in the world that is Rainbow Six Siege. Right guys, I hope you enjoy playing Alibi. Really, please do consider playing her more often. I know that she's not put up there and talked about as much as the likes of Jaeger and Vigil, but she has a lot to give when it comes to roaming and Siege. She has all the tools that people want from guns. You want a high rate of fire, you want a strong secondary you can rely on, or in some cases a shotgun to prep things, and you also want those impact grenades. You want that speed. She's got all of this, and she deserves to be played more. Definitely not going to replace old Marius anytime soon, but there's no reason why she can't be the second-hand person in that situation. Have fun, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Do svidania. Bye-bye.